of components only belongs to your class or underneath it your path. Oh, and one other thing to keep in mind, and you'll see this, and we'll be talking about this at the end of the presentation, the rewards you're going to get for being in a path, they're cosmetic. You're not going to be getting, right now, you're not going to be getting powerful special abilities. You're not going to be getting other things just for walking down the path. Because if we do that, then it really becomes the equivalent of a talent tree. No, you're going to learn these abilities whether you're part of a path or not. And that's one of the reasons the system works. But if you decide to go down the path, then there'll be things, again, very cosmetic, color-oriented, things for your home, things that you'll be able to wear. They won't give you an advantage in combat, but again, it'll allow you to identify yourselves a bit better, not only to other players on your realm, but if you want, other players on other realms as well. So right now, we've laid out 4 major paths for the warrior class. First one is Thor. With Thor, you will be mastering the hammer. And just like a lot of our favorite comic book characters, that hammer is not just useful up close and personal. You can also throw the hammer. So think of it as, medium armor wearing, damage dealing guy who also has a ranged effect, or in this case, a ranged attack. So that's Thor. Let's say you wanted to use a spear. Well, then you'd walk the path of Odin. And like Thor, he's wearing heavier armor, but he has now a spear instead of the hammer. And like the famous spear of Odin, this can be a fairly potent weapon. Well, let's say you don't want hammer or spear. Well, of course we have the sword. And there's the path of Freya. And just like the magic sword, which unfortunately has no name in Viking mythology, this sword also has a bit of intelligence to it, a bit of automation to it. So don't think of it as a pet, but it's certainly more than just your average sword. And if those 3 don't appeal, and you really want to play somebody who's a bit more, let's say, tanky, well, then we have the path of Sevlin. And that path allows you to use a shield as your primary weapon, but one of the ideas that was suggested to us by not only one of our backers, one of our longtime friends as well, Richard Ayoshi, was that why don't we think about using a dual-wielding shield guy? So the concept right now, and this is not official because we're still thinking about it, is he'll be using a 2-handed shield that can then break apart and also have, wielding each shield one-handed. So we think that's a really cool concept. It's not the first time dual shields have been used, but it's certainly very uncommon. So those are the 4 paths we have now. We have a 5th path that I'm also currently working on based on Forseti, and that is, of course, involves the axe. But I want to make sure that we get the axe just right, because there are also some very interesting things that I think we can do with the axe to make these 5 paths very, very interesting for the Viking warrior. So that's a basic overview of the Viking warrior class, currently called the Drengr, as well as the path system. So one thing to keep in mind, first of all, the name of the Viking warrior isn't confirmed. It was just a very, easy way to call the Viking warrior and associate it with a word that isn't just warrior in English. Second thing, the path system is also not confirmed. This is something that we wanted to talk to you, our backers, about and get feedback. For those of you who are in IT, you know that we've had this document up on our website, or I should say up on our forums, for more than 2 weeks now. And for those of you who have helped us out with ideas, with typo correction, with suggestions, thank you so much. This is what IT is all about. You guys got a preview of everything that's coming in, whether you are playing in our tests, or in this case, with documents. And I thank you so much, because you guys and gals were great. So, again, this is not confirmed. This is something we want to get more feedback on. We wanted to get, well, we want to talk to you and see what you guys think. We think that this path system is great. We think it accomplishes a lot of things, and it gives you freedom. It allows you to identify yourselves not only from your own perspective, immersion-wise, but also when you're looking for groups. It allows us to bring the lore of the Vikings and tie it directly to the game. It allows us to have these weapons that sound really cool, of course, but are also heavily tied into our crafters. And let me talk about that for a moment. So one of the things we've been very clear about from the beginning, of course, is how important our crafters are going to be to this game. And if you look at the path system, you can see why right off the bat. These weapons are going to have to be made by the crafters, of course. You're not going to get them from raids, because there aren't raids. You're not going to get them as a token. You're not going to get them any other way than having our crafters make them for you. And that's kind of cool, because unlike most games, once you start getting closer and closer to the soft cap we have talked about, you're not going to be getting a new weapon every day, every week, every even month. You're going to hold these weapons. These are going to be the weapons you're going to keep that will be improved upon not only by the crafter, but by you as well. And how that's going to happen, of course, is with the concept that we've talked about, boy, more than a year ago, and that is soul binding. Soul binding in this game works in a not a terribly original manner, but we hope in a way that you guys will like as well, where you're putting a bit of yourself into the weapon. It becomes part of you. It's something that you're not going to obviously want to lose. It becomes something that is as part of your everyday gear as your stats are to your character. You're not going to be just shifting or switching weapons all the time, well, unless you want to. And by the way, you can have multiple soulbound weapons. These are not things you're going to be giving away to other players. These are things that as you get closer and closer to soft cap, you're going to, well, frankly, want to keep upgrading, making them more powerful, putting more of yourself into the item. So it becomes part of you, bound to you. It also helps it get back to you in case you throw it and somebody tries to, OG, take it away from you. That's the sort of thing that we think is going to work very well, especially long term, because it does keep our crafters busy, and it also gives you something that, again, it becomes every bit of the same part of you as your stats, your house, and other things that help identify your character not only to other people, but to yourself as well. Okay, so talked about the Viking warriors, I talked about the path system, I talked about crafters, and there's a bunch of other things that I haven't talked about yet. One of which may be, hey, slightly controversial, but we've talked about this before, so it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. What's going to happen, or what's going to prevent people from maxing out all the abilities, all the runes, all the components? And we've said, again, right from the start, that that's just not going to happen. Now, we're going to manage that with soft caps. We might manage it with a hard cap on some things, like the total number of abilities you could learn, or something like that. But we also may look at skill decay. And once again, for those who were reading my things before the Kickstarter and then during the Kickstarter, I've talked about skill decay as something that is a possibility. Now, is it confirmed? Of course not. I would not want to use skill decay except as a final, no other choice way to solve the problem of people not being able to max out everything. But once again, we have talked about it in the past. It's not confirmed. And the one thing that I can promise you is that if we do put a skill decay system in, it's not meant to be a quit point. So this won't be something that if you want to go on vacation, if you go on hiatus, you even just go away for a week, you'll come back and your character will be useless. No, that would be terrible. We'll have a cap, on any skill decay at a minimum. It'll also be a slow skill decay. But the idea is to allow you, again, more flexibility. We don't want you to be able to max out all abilities. That's just not going to happen. So if we do put in skill decay, what it's really designed to be is something that not only, and I'm sorry to use this word, but occasionally you have to do it, prevents people from maxing out all their stats, but it's also there so that if you decide that you don't really want all the benefits of being a path follower, then you could start to forget, and on purpose, some of your abilities, some of your runes even, if you wanted to do that, to give you room to then grow in other areas. And that's the other thing to keep in mind. This kind of system could certainly be seen as something that could lead to flavor of the month, but as we've also said from the beginning, there aren't going to be easy respecs in the game unless we screw up. And when we do, because everyone does, then there'll be a respec. If we screw up a class, we screw up a whole line of abilities, of course we'll allow people to respec. But free and easy respecs, not going to happen. Well, boy, that about covers it. Two more things, and we'll go to a Q&A. First thing, again, it's really important to know that this is just something we're talking about. We think it solves a lot of problems, but it's not confirmed. We want to hear your feedback. Join us on our forums to discuss this. Second thing, not only do we have this presentation, but we're going to do something that very few developers have done over the years or over the decades. We're going to release an internal document on this class, on the Drengr, on the path system at the end of this presentation. This is almost the same document the team saw. We've obviously updated it a little since I showed it to them, and we put in a FAQ because the guys in IT thought a FAQ would be helpful. We put a few other sections in so that you guys would have a better understanding of not only what the system may be today, but also the things we've talked about in the past, especially for those of you who haven't been following us as closely over the last, say, 6 months. So this document will be released, and we hope you read it, you like it, and if you don't, or even especially if you do, come onto the forums and let us know. There'll be a special discussion thread on it. Join it, and that'll be that. We'll see what kind of feedback we get from you guys. Okay, well, so that's it for the Warrior. At the end of this, I will be doing a Q&A, minimum of a half hour, maybe longer, it depends on how things go. For those of you who saw our update last week, it's been just a hospital ward in here. We've had a guy in the hospital, Ben, though he's back and feeling great today. We've had half the programming team has been out. Guys as well on the art side have been out. It was an awful couple of weeks. On the other hand, we're getting healthier. Things are now moving along quite nicely. We hope to have a PAT either this week or before we go on break next week. We've been making some nice improvements to the game, as our IT testers have seen and you guys have seen from the screenshots we put out. The basic building system is in there. We're working now on improvements to client performance, as well as a lot of other things that hopefully some of which will get done before break. This probably won't be my last presentation before we leave, but just in case it is, I want to say happy holidays to everyone out there. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and every other holiday that people want to celebrate. Or for those who don't want to celebrate any particular holiday, please have a great and safe holiday season. Enjoy no matter where you are, and know that all of us at CSE, once we go on break, I think we'll still all be thinking of this game and of the incredible opportunity you, our backers, have given us. So we thank you very much, and I'll hopefully see you next week, and if not, I'll see you on the forums.
Okay, now I know you must have lots of questions, and we're at the Q&A portion with Mark. So make sure that your questions are about the Viking warrior specifically, and we're going to talk to Mark.